Hi, welcome to MSHED and to this event, which is launching our collaborative research and development call. I am Oscar De Mello. I'm the operations director for MyWorld, working with the University of Bristol, and along with Katie from the Digital Catapult team, we'll be leading you through this afternoon's proceedings. So I think it's really important to note that this event marks really the first opportunity for all of you to get involved in MyWorld. It's also the first creative industries focus call of this scale that's been designed and run in the region. And I think this really marks a step up in our ambitions for regional collaborative R&D, both of which is really, really exciting. So quickly, I'm just going to run you through the agenda for the day. As you can see, it's in two parts. The first section will take you through the call details, and then we'll take a quick comfort break before heading into section 2, which is really going to provide some inspiration for your projects via some case studies and a panel discussion. So now I'd like to hand over to MyWorld Programme Director, Professor Dave Bull, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about the MyWorld programme.
Thanks very much, Oscar. Yeah, for those of you that may know me, I'm Dave Bull. I'm the Programme Director of the MyWorld, and I'm an employee of the University of Bristol, a professor at the University of Bristol. It's a real pleasure to welcome you all here today. We've got the sun shining, which is always nice, and this, as you know, as you're here, is the launch of our first MyWorld collaborative R&D program. I want to tell you a little bit about, not about the program itself, the call itself, because that will come later, but a little bit about the background and context of MyWorld and some of our ambitions. Firstly, just to say that this is quite an important moment for us. We've just passed our first anniversary, and it's important because we're moving very much from a ramp-up phase to a delivery phase, and this call and the launch of it is a very important milestone on that journey. So I'd like to say, just to start with, a very big thank you to all of the MyWorld team who've got us this far, but in particular the management and the admin team, the core team, and also Digital Catapult have helped us very much coordinating this call that we're talking about today. So I guess the first question is, some of you may not know how we got to where we are, so a little bit of background perhaps might be helpful. I mean, I don't have to tell you that the creative sector is a major force in the world economy, and also obviously that our region is a significant player in the UK, but also globally. We've got great companies. We've got some of the best universities in the UK within the region. We've got a hugely supportive local government, and we've got strategic links across the world. But actually, despite these obvious strengths, the elephant in the room, to a certain extent, over the past few years has been, we've recognised that some of the dots haven't been quite as well joined up as they might have been, especially in terms of the technology R&D, linking that into the creative sector within the region from our universities. And the focus of MyWorld is to a large extent on doing that. So what happened in around about 2018-19 was the UKRI, the UK government, effectively introduced something called the Strength in Places Fund. And this was a fund that was open to any industry sector in any region in the UK, and the aim was to catalyse innovation-led regional growth through R&D support. I mean, I guess I would say this, but I think it is a hugely important intervention. It's effectively building on place-based strengths in a region where you've got strengths across industry and academia, but it is a very, very important experiment effectively in devolved R&D funding, so moving the R&D funding from the centre to the regions, who hopefully know their own patch and know how to spend the money, perhaps in some ways better than central government does. So basically, to cut a very long story short, in 2019, we bid for an award. There were about 280 apparently applications, and they made 7 awards, and we won £30 million to build the MyWorld Creative Hub. So just a few words perhaps on what MyWorld actually is. Well, First of all, it recognises that we are very much at an inflection point where the convergence of technologies, things like virtual production, mixed reality, AI, platforms for production, platforms for delivery, are really transforming the way we create and we interact and we deliver mediated content. So in that context, what MyWorld is, it's a collaborative hub for the region, but with global reach. It's built with regional, national, and global partners. And we've built it around something that we've called the creative continuum, which is actually, I mean, it sounds a little bit fancy, but it's actually, I think, quite an important concept, and it's very, very simple. It simply recognises that there are huge interdependencies and increasing interdependencies across the flow of content creation, content production, content delivery, and content consumption. And it really isn't an end-to-end process. It really is a continuum, and all those components in that pipeline, if you like, interact with each other. But also this continuum represents a continuum across collaborations between industry and academia, which are a huge part of what MyWorld is, but also a continuum across disciplines, because delivering these new forms, formats and technologies and means of storytelling really, really depend on whole groups of different people from different disciplines, from different subsectors working together. So over its 5-year period, what MyWorld plans to do is to deliver effectively a high-value pipeline of collaborative R&D, and that is going to be complemented and is already being complemented by skills training, by talent development, and also the provision of access to state-of-the-art experimental studio facilities. So the ambition of MyWorld is actually really, really simple. It's just to build a legacy of innovation, of talent, of new jobs, new businesses, all promoting growth and inward investment, simply to drive the region as a global centre of excellence in the creative industries. So I'm going to stop there, and I think Katie is going to click a button which is going to play a film which hopefully captures some of that ambition.
I just think for such a small region we've got such large potential. As a child you think all these movies and everything's only ever in Hollywood. I grew up watching Wallace and Gromit, and to realise that was on your doorstep the whole time I think is quite inspiring.
The West of England is already a key destination for the creative sector, not just in the UK, but actually globally. And it's not like anywhere else. And it makes me feel really, really proud.
One of the things that attracted me to Bristol was the extraordinary concentration of creative people. It feels as if we're standing on the threshold of something absolutely extraordinary, not just for us, but for the city and the region and all of the other collaborators.
Bristol brings together so many different international communities, and it's a really positive vibe, and that's what I got when I first got here, that this is a really nice place to live. And of course, meeting people that have been involved with filming, let's say, documentaries for Blue Planet, that's really great.
We're very excited about equality, diversity and inclusion. How can we help support people to retrain and access areas that they haven't necessarily been able to access before, but also thinking about encouraging new people, new demographics into the creative industry?
It's for everyone, it's for the older generation and the younger generation. It's about bringing it to life and kind of benefiting everyone.
A programme like MyWorld allows companies across the West of England region to work together to achieve things, to access state-of-the-art facilities, to learn new skills that would never have been possible without Strength in Places funding.
MyWorld's really going to open up access to facilities and knowledge and much more for local tech startups that will allow everyone to fulfil their potential.
The other side of growth is about building the reputation and the capacity of the region itself and attracting new companies who want to be here.
We're really interested in what creators can do with technology, whether that's through gaming, through robotics, through artificial intelligence, virtual reality, as well as film and all forms of digital media.
We've been working with the universities around Bristol and Bath for research purposes for our company for quite a while now. It gives us new ideas new horizons for our business, and it's a two-way street. We feed back ideas and challenges in the way we shape the future of the research.
What we hope to do is deliver a set of tools that will empower people to evaluate and quantify the extent to which their work could entertain or educate or perhaps even change their audiences.
By participating in this project, the possibilities for us are multiplied, transformed. It's a huge opportunity for us, and it could transform our business.
And the ability to generate ideas from all corners of the creative industries is exciting and hopefully becomes an attractor of others to the West of England.
These are great jobs in our amazing region. We are truly world-beating. Let's build on this to even greater future success.
Okay, so I hope that helped you to understand some of the ambitions and the breadth of the program. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to hand over to Dagmar Steffens, and Dagmar is head of strategic innovation at WECA, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about why MyWorld is important for the region.
Thank you, Dave. Hello, I'm Dagmar Steffens, as Dave just said. So I'm head of strategic innovation at something called the West of England Combined Authority. So we are the regional government to which people have just referred. So we are not Bristol City Council and we are not the national government, we are somewhere in between. And we've got a brief to support economic growth for the West of England, which is essentially Bristol, Bath, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire, so along the M4 as you get to Wales. So that's the region in which we want to support, lead, cajole people into activities that lead to economic growth. And key to that are key sectors that have been identified by evidence that led to our local industrial strategy. And one of the key sectors is the creative sector. That's clear to everybody here in the room, I think. That is clear to national government, and that is clear globally already, as Dave and Oscar have already underlined. So I've got a few stats up here, which are established through our fact-finding. So we've got 30,000 people employed in the creative and tech sector in the region. We've got by now over 6,000 businesses directly involved in creative and tech, and it's generating for our region 1.7 billion of GVA. So it is a major focal point if you are after economic growth and supporting economic growth. Competition is great, of course, especially globally. So we want to do two things. We want to make sure that we stay in this leadership role globally, and also we want to make sure that we can grow it, and not just in any direction, but into the direction where we've got strength and where we have a future. And one of them is, of course, what's been picked up by MyWorld, and screen-based and content production. So we are home to the UK's third largest TV sector. We are one of the 3 BBC location hubs. We are Channel 4's creative hub. It goes on and on and on. So the regional government's point of view is that we need to enable people to access the sector, and once they're in the sector, to make the most and contribute the most to that sector. And that is why we are working with the universities and why we are working with the local government in order to attract funding into the region. Innovation funding, and that was mentioned beforehand, works partly best when it is given to the people who know the region, who know the sector, and who understand where it could produce most gains. And we have seen recently in the Levelling Up paper from government that Manchester and the West Midlands have been identified as innovation accelerators. We also want to be, we are an innovation accelerator, and we want to put ourselves on the map. And MyWorld is the kind of program that does that. So we have, in the past, we've got a track record. We started work as a regional authority in 2017, and we've run a number of programs that are targeting the creative sector in particular. So, for example, we have been running and will be running the Creative Scale-Up, which is a wraparound program for SMEs and freelancers in the creative sector, It was funded by 1.3 million, the initial pilot by DCMS. We partnered with the Watershed. There is peer-to-peer networking in this. There's mentoring, training, and business grants. There's 67 industry mentors involved in that program, and we've delivered more than 1,500 hours of one-to-one mentoring over the last 2 years. We've created 197 new jobs. That's quite an astonishingly precise number, isn't it? 197 new jobs, and we are certainly intent on keep going with this kind of support for our freelancers and SMEs. We are also running a creative growth program. That's a 1 million recovery program out of the West of England Authority's own investment fund. It is very much modeling the creative scale-up, but it is more open to different legal entities, so not just to SMEs, but also to freelancers, for example, and again, partnering with the Watershed. We are also made available creative grants over the last year, 1.3 million from our recovery fund that went to 98 businesses, 132 freelancers, and was probably a lifeline for a significant number of creatives in the region during these really hard times. And what speaks for the success so far of what my team does is that I have noted on the program that there are several recipients or participants of our support programs and our grants who are actually speaking later on specifically around MyWorld. We are really interested in picking up MyWorld as it develops now and keep supporting it, but also we will focus on what happens once the MyWorld program nears the finishing line, because we don't want it to finish. We want, as Dave said, there to be a legacy that carries on in the region. And when we talk about place, maybe we should talk about places, because we are a globally important place, and you can see it lying there in front of us. But there are many places where we haven't yet reached with this, and we do want to include people and create opportunities in MyWorld and going forward, and through other skills programs that my authority delivers, especially in the digital and tech space. So if you're interested, find us on our website. You can find what we do in the skills space, in the innovation space, and in the creative space. I've also got a couple from my team here. Can you just raise your hands? Reluctantly by that column over there are Jess and Emma. So if you have further questions and I'm not around, try to find them and they can talk intelligently about all of this. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Dagmar. We're now going to move on to a bit more information about the open funding opportunities. This event is primarily to present the call which has just opened. However, Farah here from Watershed and I will be first running through a few of the different opportunities which are being presented, which MyWorld is making available, each of which presents a unique opportunity to engage with the programme. As you heard from Dave and Dagmar's introduction, the vision of MyWorld is to build upon a history of collaboration, to bring together our well-established creative sector with our centres of research excellence, and in doing so to strengthen the createch powerhouse that already is the West of England. Before we move on, can I just get a show of hands, people here? Who here is from industry or business? Could you just raise your hands? Thank you. And then can I get the same from research organisations and universities? So I think, to me, that looks like a pretty good 50-50 split. I don't know. I'm not counting exactly. But it's great to see such a representation, given that we're looking for collaboration between research organisations and industry here. MyWorld's success depends on all of us working together to build upon that supportive and collaborative ecosystem. And together we can extend and build upon those existing strengths, provide the foundations for new companies to start and grow, and for existing organisations to thrive. MyWorld will support that ambition by providing the expertise, training, skills and facilities that enable that to happen both during and beyond the programme. So, knowing that one size doesn't fit all, we've designed a series of different ways for you all to engage with the programme. Watershed's Ideas programme supports small companies and freelancers with high-risk ideas, and Digital Catapult's opportunities, which support the next generation of advanced digital technology within the creative industries. Both are summarised on screen now. In total, we'll be investing over £4.5 million over the next 4 years, and we'd like to encourage you to think about which parts of the programme best meet your needs. Consider how the different funding opportunities best align with your roadmaps to support your work and give you a competitive advantage. Consider the state aid funding limits over the 4 years and when is best to apply, and talk to us for advice and to understand what support in the form of facilities, training, technical support and business support is available. There's a lot more information about all of this on the MyWorld website, which I urge you to look at. And finally, to say that we're covering an awful lot of information today, and all of this again is on the website, and we'll be sharing a recording of this event afterwards, along with copies of the slides for you to go back to if you need to. I'm going to hand over to Faraha now.
Thank you, Katie. Hi everyone, I'm Faraha Asani. I'm the research lead at Watershed, and I'm really happy and excited to be here with you all today to tell you a little bit about our offers. So, as we've heard, we know that the region's creative industry is very well established and quite innovative. At the same time, we do recognize that for micro businesses, it can often be a struggle to engage with R&D. And this is where we hope that MyWorld's opportunities facilitated by Watershed can come in. And so on the slide, you'll see a number of ways that you can engage with us. And for today, I don't have enough time to go through all of them, but I assure you all that we will be circulating the slides as a PDF. And also this information will be available or is already available on the MyWorld and Watershed websites. But for today, I want to highlight 3 of our opportunities. The first 2 are our micro-residencies and our fellowships. The micro-residencies are going to last for a period of 3 months, and the fellowships will last anywhere between 6 and 10 months. And these 2 opportunities are going to be drip-fed over the next 4 years. And the reason that we've chosen to do it this way is we hope that it introduces some flexibility in how you're able to engage with us. So micro-residencies and fellowships will be themed, and the themes will be co-designed together with our university and our industry partners. And we're hoping that these opportunities will also introduce you to our network of residents based at Pervasive Media Studio in Watershed. So as of now, we don't yet have a set date for launching them, but please do keep an eye out. Our third opportunity is the Sandbox Commissions. So Sandbox refers to a tried and tested methodology that brings companies together for a period of very intense research and development of 3 months. And this is facilitated and guided by creative producers. And we're going to be running 2 of these commissions as cohorts. So each cohort is going to have 6 teams, and they will be themed as well. So we're launching our first offer in late spring, early summer, and it's going to be themed on Playable City. And our second offer is going to be running between 2023 and 24. So to talk a little bit about what our first theme, Playable City, refers to. The Playable City is a project that has been running for about 10 years. It's a trademark of Watershed. And it consists of several projects, actually, that seek to embed creative technology in very fun and engaging ways into city infrastructure to invite people to just have fun in the city. And yeah, I think that's all I had to say for this slide. So yes, basically, here's a list of some of the benefits of applying to our Sandbox commissions. So you will have access to producers, to business mentors, as well as to industry experts who will serve as advisors. And very important to note that the commission, the cohorts will be based in the Pervasive Media Studio. So in terms of these themes, I just want to highlight that we're really keen to support at least 2 projects that will find a way to integrate a nomadic 5G network, which is currently being developed by MyWorld in the Bristol Harbour side as well as in Millennium Square by our very brilliant engineering colleagues at the University of Bristol Smart Internet Lab. So any questions that people might have around feasibility of their proposals, we will be able to refer you to our engineering colleagues. So if you have any questions, please do feel free to send an email to our MyWorld Watershed email address, directed to Vanessa Beller-Sprout. Vanessa, if you can just wave your hand. Vanessa is Watershed's MyWorld producer, very brilliant producer. And also during the networking time that we have later on, please do feel free to come over to me and to Danielle Rose, who is Watershed's network producer, to just have a chat, to ask some questions, and to just introduce yourselves. So we look forward to working with you all. And I'm going to hand back to Katie now.
Thank you, Faraha. I'm going to move on to Digital Catapult's calls now. So the first of the two Digital Catapult calls are the challenge calls. And the objective of the challenge calls is to design challenges that respond to the regional strengths and interests, lower barriers to entry, and leverage the capabilities of the programme, including the facilities, training, skills, and knowledge. We'll be running 2 challenge calls over the next 4 years and envisage awarding up to £50,000 per project. We'll be consulting with organisations from across the creative industries, including, hopefully, all of yourselves, from May of this year to design the first call with the aim of launching this autumn. If you are interested in these calls, then keep an eye out on LinkedIn and Twitter. And if you're interested in getting involved, sign up for the MyWorld newsletter as well. There'll be links for all of that later. As you can see from this is in a fairly early stage of development, so I'm going to move on. And then the second call is the collaborative R&D calls. Over the next 4 years, Innovate UK will run 2 collaborative R&D calls, both of which invite industry-led projects working in collaboration with regional research organisations. Up to £2 million in grants will be awarded in total, with each project receiving £100,000 to £200,000. Depending upon the size of the business and the type of project, you will also be expected to make a match contribution. So the event today is primarily to present the call which has just opened. However, we know there are some of you that won't have had time to build relations and plan consortia projects yet. If that is the case, then please do consider the other opportunities that we're presenting today, along with the second CR&D call, which is scheduled for June of next year. Do think about whether this is the right time for you and use the support available from the programme to help you build relations and leverage all of those available resources. I'm just going to go into this first call that's just launched in a little bit more detail. So the aim of this first CR&D competition is to support business-focused R&D and innovation in the west of England by funding industry-led projects working in collaboration with research organisations. The full details of the call are on the website, on the Innovation Funding Service website, hosted by Innovate UK, and there's a link and Google search terms on the screen now. Fundamentally, though, we can say that the call has a broad scope and we welcome applications from all projects addressing all areas of the creative continuum that Dave referred to earlier. Primarily, we're interested in enabling technologies that support the creative industries and solutions that tackle new or emerging needs within the creative industries. Your project doesn't need to be entirely new. It can be built on something you're already doing or investing in. I like to think of this as funding that de-risks research and development or advances your product or service to give you a competitive advantage. So think about it in those terms. If you go to the Innovation Funding Service website, this is what you'll see, except that it says it's open now. So obviously I got this screen grab a couple of days ago. The key criteria for your applications are as follows. So projects can be between 1 and 2 years long and must start by the 1st of January next year. We're awarding £100,000 to £200,000 in grant per project, and industry partners are required to make a match contribution. All projects must be led by a UK registered business of any size, a not-for-profit or a charity, and must work in partnership with a research organisation based in the west of England. All work must be carried out in the UK. And finally, all projects must demonstrate a positive economic impact in the west of England. You might want to think about the following questions when you're putting your applications together. So, what will the impact of this project be on the west of England commercially and socially? What is the cutting edge or ambitious about the project? What will the funding allow you to do that you otherwise couldn't? And what is the commercial opportunity and potential? So the timeline for this first call is on the screen now. So it opened yesterday, which is exciting for us. Yay! And it closes on the 1st of June. Do note that that's 11 a.m, not midnight, so don't leave it till the very last minute. Once applications close, they'll go through initial blind assessment with Innovate UK assessors. Then the final selection of projects will be advised by a panel of industry, region and academic experts who will consider what selection of projects give us the best representation of technologies, markets, technological maturities and research. The selected projects will be advised in early August, after which they go through due diligence checks and contracting with Innovate UK. The funding is awarded once that's complete and could be as late as December this year. Hopefully that's given you a pretty good overview. I'm just going to run through some sort of final advice and guidance. So the call is being operated by Innovate UK. The programme partners, and particularly Digital Catapult, have led the design and worked in collaboration with Innovate on the call. There is a customer service centre which is there to support you with any inquiries, and again, that's on the Innovation Funding Service website. What we'd like to do is to encourage you to create an account on that site, familiarise yourself with what's required for an application, and to start your applications early. The funding calculator on the site is particularly helpful given the different match percentages for different businesses and project types and the limits on the funding to the research organisation partners. There's more general guidance advice and advice on the UKRI website, including funding rules and the categories of R&D. MyWorld has a number of facilities available and a lot of very skilled and knowledgeable people. The website provides an overview, but again, do approach us if you have any needs or think we can help you in any way. Our other advice is to think about your consortium's collaboration agreement from the beginning and to line up your legal teams. There's a few knowing laughs in the audience there, I think. There are a number of different pro forma agreements which you can use, but in our experience, university legal departments are most familiar with the Lambert model, which presents different models for ownership and exploitation of the IP and the results or outcome of the project. If you have no idea what I'm talking about here, don't worry, Google it, it's pretty, and talk to your legal teams. And finally, do take the opportunity today to mingle and meet people. It's what we're here for. We have a lot of support available for you if you need introductions. Tan, who's here, and is going to be leading the first part of part 2 today, is our Partnerships and Industry Engagement Manager and is on hand to support you with introductions and collaboration building. And then finally, just a plug for the Innovate webinar on the 4th of May, so next week. That session will go into the call scope in a lot more detail and allow you to ask questions about the application process itself. So I encourage you to sign up and attend that. It's a webinar, so obviously you can attend. And again, it will be recorded and made available on the Innovate Funding Service website afterwards. So if you can't come to the event itself, catch up with the recording. I think that's me. I don't know, I have no idea whether I'm on time, but how are we doing?
Good. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, absolutely. So there ends section 1. See, it was easy, wasn't it? I just want to point out there, I think the really exciting thing is how many different opportunities were presented there. So thank you, Katie and Faraha, for taking us through that. The key message is there is a route into MyWorld for everyone, no matter what stage your business or your project idea is at currently. It's a case of kind of waiting for the right opportunity to come along, but they're there, which is great. A gentle nudge in the direction, whilst I'm on it, of our website, myworldcreates.com. It's there. Please do sign up for our newsletter. It is a really good way of keeping in touch with things that are coming out in the next few months and so forth, so make sure you don't miss anything. Same on our social channels on LinkedIn and Twitter, and obviously all of our partners do push out our information as well. It's a great way to keep in touch with what's happening in the programme. And then obviously, as always, do get in touch if you have questions. We're always happy to talk and go through things. So I think we're going to take a break now. We are running a bit ahead of schedule, which is great, but if we stick to 10, 15 minutes, we'll come back, gives a little bit longer for the next section, which is good. So thank you very much. When we come back, Tan will be introducing us to some wonderful case studies. So very exciting. Thanks all.
Welcome back, everyone. It's just amazing to see you all talk to each other. That was exactly what we needed you to do. So I have witnessed some serendipity on the balcony today, so I'm really pleased about that. This session is really about getting some inspiration for you. I've been told to talk about what is collaborative R&D, but actually I've got two amazing case studies who are going to just talk you through what they've done. And hopefully that gives you some examples, because what is collaboration, what is R&D? It depends on what you're doing, doesn't it? And the aim of any type of funding like this is about bringing people together to do projects that they don't normally do. And this type of funding is about creating collaboration between academics, and it encourages businesses to work with the academic world, and it de-risks some of those projects. That's what these types of funds are for. For MyWorld, this is specifically about the creative industries. And what we want to see in terms of the projects coming forward can be many different versions of that. So think about an enabling technology that supports or solves a challenge from the creative sector, or we would welcome novel applications of creative technologies that's applied in new ways or to new sectors. So if you're already working in the creative industries and you want to take that technology elsewhere, and I think we've got some amazing examples today about how we've done that. And finally, this could be about looking at new ways to enable innovative storytelling. So, I hope that this covers a lot of ground for you, and that you've got some ideas about how you might take your technological skills, your knowledge in the creative industries, and find matches that are going to support innovative, new, creative technology projects. So moving forward to our case studies. I've got two examples today. I'm going to introduce you to CAMRA, University of Bath, and we have Neil Campbell, and Neil's going to talk about collaborative R&D from an academic perspective. And then after Neil, we're going to have Andy, and Andy is from Motion Impossible, and he's going to talk about collaborative R&D from an industry perspective. I just want to add that we've lost one person today who was programmed, called Fictioneers, unfortunately due to illness. But I had hoped that that would have been an example of storytelling. So, and how they've taken technology and rethought how creative technologies can change the way we think about storytelling. So there are examples from today. And so first up is Neil Campbell.
Thank you. We've lost storytelling, but story time with Neil is always a possibility, especially when I'm told we have slightly longer to talk. So Someone will wave at me when story time gets too much, so sorry. I would say I'm Neil Campbell, I'm an engineer, but it's not that kind of meeting. So I'm the director of the Centre of Analysis of Motion, Entertainment Research and Applications. And it's a great pleasure to be here and see so many people from industry and academia. And this is very much a talk of the collaboration from the two sides. And one of the things that we get excited about in Camera at Bath is working with our creative partners. So it's a centre that has academics on the technical side for computer science and from healthcare and biomechanics and sports, but we work very much with creative industries, immersive media, immersive tech, and sports science and health and rehabilitation. And so it's the coming together of the applications, and we are very keen on working, like we can't achieve the things that we achieve in the centre without working collaboratively with partners across both academic partners and industry partners. And that's very much what this talk is about. So this is a case study from a few years ago called Magic Butterfly. And if by the magic of, here we go. So we're in Bristol, so everyone is very familiar with this. This is a shipping container. And the project was started, so this is just the front of the Welsh National Opera in Cardiff. A shipping container, 5 points if you can guess which opera they were performing. But it's about reimagining opera in VR. And the two collaborative partners are the Welsh National Opera themselves and Rewind is a company, sort of small company in the creative sector. And the whole thing came together from a conversation about they wanted to make a new experience so the members of the public can just walk past, engage a bit with the opera, and hopefully that sort of makes opera more accessible. And inside this shipping container, the doors open, you can come in, put on the VR headset, and you'll see something like this, except you would have seen it in 3D and it'd be much more exciting. But I will show you it in 2D here. Hopefully there's sound, otherwise I'm singing an aria. So that last part of the section is the exciting part, and I'm sad that it's no longer there. If you come to the studio, come visit us at Camera, we can give you the VR experience. But it's a really interesting thing to be inside when you've got the sort of very stylized rendering that's indicative of the production that they're trying to do. But you're inside it in 3D, in something that isn't trying to be real, it's sort of pseudo-real. It's a really interesting experience. And so it was a great idea. WNO contacted Rewind. Rewind we'd already spoken to from a former Innovate grant, so, and talking about it, we'd sort of gone to a meeting with them. They'd said the sort of things that they're interested in. We'd invited them to come to Camera and shown them the studio and the sort of things that we did. And I think this is one of the things about the case study is how did these things kick off? Well, the starting idea is to understand what it is that each party brings to the table and try and make sure that you've got all the sections that you need. And in here, we've got, from the WNO, we have like an international soprano who's going to come in to sing. They've got the stylized renderings. They've got an idea for what they want to create. And then from our side of things, we're saying, okay, so you've given us a brief now. It's quite specific. And one of the big areas that Camera works on in motion capture. So people might be familiar with Andy Serkis, and we saw some shots from the studio early on in the trailer. So you wear a very stylish suit with lots of decorative polka dots on it, and these are tracked by the cameras, and so we rig up a bone structure. So here's Harasong singing in the studio, being captured. All these exciting overlays are a rig that we set up. We then hand off this motion captured data and the captured solve rig, and that gets handed over to Rewind. And so here's it's a bit dark in the light, but hopefully you can see on this exciting pattern floor, all of these glowing cameras are the motion capture cameras that are tracking these markers. And the important thing about the CR&D calls is there's lots of innovation. So in order to do this, we were also innovating from our side of things. We made a new solver to run that. So there's new software and content being created. Also, it's about problem solving, and problem solving comes in many forms. So that is a $5.99 football net from Argos. It turns out when the soprano sings with massive sleeves that keep occluding the markers, that's very difficult to track. But if you can very kindly ask your superstar to wear a football net, then you can probably just see here, she's carefully wearing a football net. Much easier to track. That's the kind of cutting-edge innovation you get when you work with camera. Guaranteed or your money back. And so this is in our studio. It's quite exciting if you come up through the computer science department, and at the time it was in a smaller studio, and she's not quiet when she's singing flat out, so that was very exciting. But you really get to capture the performance, it's fed back, and then we hand off the data to Rewind, and they're coming with the creative dream. So we're coming with some technology to try and fulfill someone's creative ambitions, and that's very much the sort of story of it. It's exciting for us because you actually get to see it goes into an installation. It's a really wonderful impact case study for the university. You're getting people, members of the public off the street are getting excited, coming in to see something new. The technology maybe gets them in, and then the experience is what sort of sells them through. And I'm sure, I'm talking to the choir here. There's lots of creative companies in here. This is the kind of thing where you get to get your vision in your head, and if you can explain it to us, we try and help bring the technology together that makes that a reality. And it's exciting for us because it's Rewind, and they know what they're doing. They make it look beautiful, and they win lots of prizes. So this is all very good. The final thing I was asked to say a few words about is sort of how do you start some of these things? How do you make them successful? I think I'm going to say things that people already know. It's very much about communication early on, really trying to really communicate what it is that you want to achieve. Sort of trying to say it in words that everyone can understand. There's kind of two sides of this creative R&D process. I always feel that on the sort of creative side, there's a kind of give me a hammer and I'll do wonderful things that you never thought were possible with a hammer. Whereas from the sort of technology side, we start with but you need to tell me what you want to do with the hammer so I can make you the hammer in the first place. And so there's this tension here. And the idea is instead of doing, like we hope with MyWorld, instead of doing this long loop where we spend 5 years developing new technology and then we give it to someone and they go, well, that wasn't quite what we wanted, and someone takes something existing and does it the other way, if we can make these small loops all the way through. So keep that dialogue all the way going. We say, this is what's possible, these are the new technologies, this is where we could take things, and have the desire from the other hand going, oh, ideas coming out, this is what I'd like to do, this is some new things. So we make sure that as we build all these new things, they can be useful and used in new and exciting ways that no one thought about now. And that's what really gets me excited about the creative continuum that Dave was discussing at the start. So I think I'm pushing my luck with time now, so I shall stop there. Thank you. I forgot to say, sorry, we're not having a question now, but I'll be around at the end, and if they put their hands in the air, the camera team are also here, so please come and talk to Rebecca, Ava, and Jamie as well. Thank you.
I'm going to make all the academics wave in a minute, so later. So I just want to introduce Andy Nuncollis from Motion Impossible for an industry perspective.
Thank you very much. If I can work the technology now, shall we? Okay, so who's Motion Impossible first? I still feel like the newbie in this. We've been doing it for 6 or 7 years now. And I stand up and I still feel like the new kid in school. But for 6, 7 years, we've been making robotics for TV and film. That's what we do. We sell them worldwide. At the start of our little journey, we made toy cars carry professional filming kit, which my business partner said, I want to take this. My business partner's a wildlife cameraman. He wanted to take cameras to the wildlife, get them much closer to the action. I was a design engineer and played in a toy car club at the weekends, and I was the chairman of that club. And Rob phoned me up and said, I want to make this. I said, what you want doesn't exist. But I'm a design engineer, I'll make it. Have you got any money? I said, got a bit. I said, okay, I've got time, let's go. 2 years later, we had 100 RC car robots around the world filming virtual reality for some of the biggest VR productions going on. We were the only people in the world doing it commercially. That really seeded the launch of our business into making bespoke robotics. So everything we build now is from the ground up developed by us. We're still quite a small company, and we're still trying to find ways to fund it. So this is why programs like this and collaborations with universities are really key. We've engaged with universities from as early as we could, really, with limited resources. It was how do we make something from nothing in a lot of ways. There was a stage where we found we outgrew some premises we were on. We were in a farm barn, as you do when you're a robotics company. It was cheap and it was big, so it meant we could play a lot and make a lot of mistakes privately, which was lovely. We expanded a little bit and ended up with an office in Future Space next door to the BRL, which meant that all of a sudden we were face to face with actual experts at technical things, not just people who know about toy cars. We got talking to the guys from the university there, and we put together a project with them to basically play around with what we think could be, another generation of how to move cameras. Toy cars move in one way. They're very much little cars, so they move just like big cars. It's not very human, and it's not really it's not the heart of what we want for TV and film and camera motion. So we asked them to help us develop a concept we had. I had an idea one morning for how to make a chassis move in all directions and make it so you could move like a human does in any direction at any point in time, rather than having to follow the big long curve to get through the doorway, which is over there, but my steering angle's not right. So you end up doing 3-point turns, and that's embarrassing on film set. So we wanted something omnidirectional. Holonomic was the word that university taught me about that. We went and spoke to the guys at the university, said, we've got this idea, it's a bit crazy. We haven't really got any way to test it or try it. It's beyond our knowledge. We only had a couple of engineers at the time. The university had a fund, the RIF Fund, Robotics Innovation Fund. We applied into that, so we got a small pot of money, which got us a few months of time with engineers at the university. We gave them a sketch, a fag packet sketch of this idea for this chassis that we wanted. And instead of using goal nets, they used Lego. So that's actually Lego and wire. But it proved to us the concept we had for how we move this thing was valid. So we took that idea. We designed something now bigger and better from the groundwork they did in that project. That project also then founded, it was a piece of work that allowed us to apply for a full Innovate grant. We've applied for a lot of Innovate grants over the years. We've never got them until this one came along. Our own personal frustration, but there we go. We got one though, and we onward developed the thing that the RIF Fund created for us. So now we've got this piece of technology that is no longer a piece of Lego, it's now real-sized, and it ran around in our office for the first time at 4 o'clock this morning, ready for the Innovate review, which happened just before this. And it works. So little win. That project's also a feasibility study, so this is where we hope now, as a small business, still trying to grow, still self-funded, no investment money, no big Japanese robotics company funding what we're up to. This is still about us being in control of our business and leveraging the expertise there is in the region to help us grow and then further expand what the region does for itself. So really and truly, and there's a lot of text on here, I wrote this in a hurry, it's about, for us, finding ways to expand our business within our means in a way that means we can grow our business sustainably, really expand not just us and our engineers, but also the wider region as well. There's a wealth of expertise in this area, especially with robotics. And we've been lucky to get some really good support at really good times for us. And we're hopeful that that trend might continue. That's the hope. So, yeah, that's me and Motion Impossible.
Thank you. So I realised at the beginning that I didn't say my name. And it's really important that I do say it. So my name's Tan Kwan Nichols, and I'm the Partnership and Industry Engagement Manager for the MyWorld project. And I think I really do need to say that I'm here to help you form your partnerships and your collaborations, and to help, and I've had many people come up already today who want to be matched for projects. The most important thing about this call is you do need an academic collaboration, and I hope that the two examples have given you some inspiration on how that academic, that knowledge transfer from the university can support R&D within your business, and thinking about how you apply that expertise, that deep expertise and knowledge into your business. That's specifically what this fund is really all about. So what next? Well, the most important thing is you stay afterwards and have a drink and talk to each other. I wonder if I will do this. I'm going to make the academics just stand up, maybe? Stand up. Go on. If you're an art researcher, stand up, just so people can see. So have a good look. Go and talk to them later. There are other academics in the region as well. I just thought I'd make that first intro. And there are teams across 4 brilliant universities. So if you come and contact me and you've got something that you don't find someone today, come and talk to me, and I will try it. I'll go and search in the universities to find the right kind of academic leads for you. The other thing that you should do if you're thinking of applying is please sign up to the 4th of May webinar that Katie mentioned earlier, because that's the nuts and bolts of the application process. And Innovate UK funding, if you've not done it before, is an experience, and it's a whole new, it's a sort of alternate universe, I'm going to say. I've also set up a LinkedIn group, which I'd love you to join, because I don't know if I can share all the details of everyone here. So if you want to be found, please join the LinkedIn group. I think you have to apply and then I accept, and this will go out with the email later. And of course, please speak to me. That's what I'm here to do. I've left my phone number and email, and I'm available on a Calendly booking as well if you need a one-to-one conversation. So next we've got a panel. I can't find where Mark is. Where's Mark?
I'm at the back.
Oh, Mark's at the back, but he's going to take the next panel. Mark Lever is going to have a... Where is our panel? Oh, I see. I know. Mark's going to come forward and everyone's going to get mic'd up first. And Mark's going to talk to you about the different members of the panel as we start.
So, hi. I'm Mark Lever. I am a consultant in creative industries development, strategy, policy. Most importantly for today, I am leading on impacts and partnership for MyWorld. So my role is about how we reach industry and how we reach out of our little R&D bubble, and how we reach out to the wider region, and how we reach out internationally. I'm very keen that this isn't something that just happens here. It's something that has resonance across the globe. So we are about to do a panel which is called Collaborative Futures. Sorry, I need glasses, unfortunately. Where are the next innovation challenges in production, distribution, and experience? And when I wrote that question, which is effectively what MyWorld is all about, where are the next bits of innovation for production, distribution, experience, I suddenly got stuck a bit on the word next and what we mean by the timeline of next. Farah was talking earlier about the Pervasive Media Studio, and we had a session last year celebrating 14 years of the Pervasive Media Studio and asking what had changed. And one of the fundamental things that had changed was when we opened the Pervasive Media Studio, there was no iPhone or smartphone. We were 6 months ahead of any of that technology, which means that everything that's happened since has happened into a very, very rapidly changing world. It's an extraordinary change in our communications and the way we manage our lives over that 14-year period. So we have to be kind of cognizant of that as MyWorld. MyWorld is a 5-year program. 5 years in tech terms is an utterly extraordinary length of time. So 5 years ago, TikTok had just launched. We were just talking about with someone who's a very, very influential and highly kind of respected record plugger, whose job has entirely changed in the last 5 years because the music industry has been disrupted by TikTok. And we didn't see that coming. So we have to keep MyWorld relevant. We have to keep MyWorld really, really pushing at tech terms, where the edges are, and delivering innovation which is going to find a market, which is constantly moving. So to do that, we need to have an understanding of where the industry barriers are. What is it that you would like to do? But also, what is it that your customers might like to do? And how do you know? Because they don't know. because they don't have the product yet. So we're in this very kind of interesting dichotomy where we need information, and we, as MyWorld, need that information because we have to know where the edge of the cutting edge is. Otherwise, we don't know if we're investing in the right type of prototyping. So we're going to do a lot of horizon scanning. We're going to do a lot of thinking about where the international industry is, and we're going to do a lot of talking to businesses. And effectively, what I'm hoping that we start now with this panel is this process, that you're regularly going to meet MyWorld and you're regularly going to meet people from industry who are talking about this is where I am in terms of innovation. And the intention is that at the end of that, everything that we've funded is at the edge of the cutting edge. Now, my panel have just done a very catwalky thing. So they're going to, I was filling slightly so that they could all get mic'd up. But they've all gone to the back, so they're going to like parade up like it's... Yeah, could you all give it your best and give us a little swish at the top? Great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's the first MyWorld innovation. The next event that you have, make sure your panel are at the back and they walk up. There they go. Great, thank you all for joining me. Right, I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves along the panel so that you know who they are and what their business is, and so that I don't mangle what it is that they do through my own interpretation. Nick, do you want to start?
Yeah, of course. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Fellingham. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Condensed Reality. We're a computer vision startup, and we specialize in streaming live events into the metaverse. So things like music events, sports events, and theatre, other kinds of performances. We build the infrastructure and the technology which allows people to stream these into 3D game worlds. Nice to be here.
Hi, I'm Antonia Forster. I am the Senior XR Technical Specialist at Unity. So XR means virtual reality, augmented reality, and anything in between, those kinds of technologies. So I specialize in that, getting people excited, enthusiastic, on board, and using them. In my own time, I'm also an LGBTQ activist, award-winning keynote speaker. I'm also the director and producer of the world's first LGBTQ+ virtual reality museum.
Hi, I'm Kay Dunnings. I'm the creative director at Lost Horizon, which is a new venue in real life in Bristol that's using tech and hybrid performance to just share culture. Real culture in a virtual world is our tagline. So we have lots of live music events that we're about to start producing virtually. So every show that we have in the venue will be accessible to everybody. I'm also the creative director at Shangri-La, which is an area at Glastonbury that's been going for about 15 years.
Hello, I'm Stuart O'Neill. I'm the Executive Creative Director at Diva, or Studio Diva as it's sometimes referred, and we are a gaming and entertainment specialist marketing agency based here in Bristol.
Hi, I'm Mandy Rose. I'm a Professor of Documentary and Digital Cultures at UWE. I'm also part of the IDOCS research group. IDOCS is short for Immersive and Interactive Documentary. I came to UWE 10 years ago from a long career in media, 20 years at the BBC latterly, as a producer, director of video, of interactive and of participatory media. And I am one of the co-investigators on MyWorld, on a work package called Experimental Productions, along with Kate Pullinger from Bar Spa, with Bristol Old Vic, BDH, and Ardman.
Okay, thank you all. That's great. So I want to pick up where I kind of left off, this idea that over the last 15 years we've been through this kind of exponential change in technology. And I really kind of question, are we still moving forward at the same speed? Should we expect that in 15 years' time the change that we've experienced is multiplied again? So Nick, can I come to you first? Are we still moving forward at the same speed? Are you working on a future which is moving that rapidly?
Yes, I definitely think we are. I think the big pieces of technology which are sort of almost under the radar at the moment, that are coming out of academia, that are coming out of research, are going to be far more influential than a lot of people realise. Things like machine learning, I mean, or deep learning in its current form, this technology is only about 5 years old in industry, And I think, for instance, a lot of our algorithms are built on top of this technology, which has only just come out of academia, that actually it multiplies over time. So as you throw more data in it, it just gets better and better. And so I think you'll see that across a number of industries, that technology, although maybe Moore's law's stopping on the hardware side of things, it's being filled up in other places, like, for instance, deep learning, like the advances in GPU technology. So yeah, I think we're going to carry on at this sort of exponential growth rate for quite a while to come.
And how does that technology cross over into the kind of world of creative experiences? What is machine learning enabling you to do which you couldn't do previously?
Well, with us specifically, it's about creating as realistic content inside 3D digital spaces as we possibly can. And so obviously, the way our tech works is we have an array of cameras that's combining lots of data from lots of different viewpoints into a 3D model that can then be viewed inside a game world. And of course, it's impossible to reproduce that perfectly because you'd have to have an infinite number of cameras. So you use deep learning to make guesses and to do the best job it can to reproduce that. And as those algorithms improve, the quality will improve. And so I think startups like ours that are using these pattern recognition algorithms to improve their products, they're just starting to see the results of that. And at that point, when you have these technologies which can create photorealistic content inside games, you can pass that to creative people and you can say, what can you do with it? Like, content is king. What can you create with this?
Yeah. And
so we see it as our job to be the infrastructure that sort of sits in the background and keeps things running. But we want the creatives and the performers to be doing the work of actually creating stuff which people are interested in watching and enjoying.
Antonio, I want to come to you to pick up on what Nick said, because part of the driver of this is also the increasing use of games engines as a way which drive forward this thing. And it seems to me that games engines are one of those accelerating factors for the next few years. Do you want to continue that line?
Yeah, definitely. So for anyone who doesn't know, Unity is a very popular games engine. It's used to create most virtual reality and augmented reality content. Unreal is another example of a very popular game engine that people use. So not only are there so many different tools coming out, so interestingly, I actually don't work on the game side at all with Unity. I work in industry. So anyone who uses Unity to make VR or AR content for automotive, transport, manufacturing, engineering, aerospace, government, film, media, entertainment, any of those things. Healthcare is another one. People are using VR and AR technologies in all of those industries increasingly. So we're seeing more and more people, more and more diverse use cases in industries. But something I think is particularly interesting is something you touched on, Nick, is people using different technologies in combination. So a games engine or an engine, a physics engine, is just one part of that pipeline. But we're seeing more and more people using photogrammetry and LiDAR, ways of capturing 3D models. Machine learning to train learning models and neural networks. We're seeing more people using tracking, whether it's hand tracking, eye tracking, face tracking, full body tracking, which enables users to do other things. We're seeing more haptics, the ability to feel things that aren't really there, whether it's with gloves or vests or with ultrasound. We're seeing more people using biometrics, the ability to discern someone's emotions from psychophysiological measures and feed that back to make adaptive content that changes depending on how emotionally engaged the user is and what they're feeling. So we're seeing more and more people who are trained enough and understanding enough to start creating content that combines these tools. And that's what I find really exciting. I think that's incredibly community-driven. I think more and more people are learning and sharing their knowledge for free, places like on YouTube, courses online, on TikTok. And as there are more and more creators, especially from more diverse backgrounds, bringing all these fresh new perspectives and new ideas that weren't there before, we're seeing a wealth of new content, which is really exciting. So I definitely think we're going to keep moving at the same pace, if not increasingly so.
Yeah, sure. Mandy, you want to come in there?
Yeah, I wanted to come in, yes, because I totally agree about where the kind of speed has shifted into this space. It's very much about the confluence of different technologies. But I guess one of the things I think about this afternoon is I see myself as the voice of the audience on this panel to an extent. And I think that the confluence of some of those things we're talking about, VR plus AI, VR plus photorealistic avatars, they raise really interesting questions about risk for the audience, about the kind of ethics of those spaces. So I guess, I would say there, as well as in other spaces, that the thinking about the technology development has to be alongside the thinking about the user experience from an ethical point of view, and those are central questions becoming more so every day.
Yeah, 100% agree. I actually would go one step further. I think we talk a lot in the tech world, at least the events I kind of end up going to, being an activist and an advocate for underrepresented people in tech. I think we not only have to talk about risk mitigation, things like when you're in a virtual space where you feel the sense of physical presence, how does that affect things like harassment and assault? It's a lot more affecting. For me personally, having been a victim of assault, I actually can't play any VR experience that has a humanoid shape that's taller than me moving towards me, because I feel so like it's physically real that I shut down. Even if it's in a comedic or a kind of funny experience, it shuts me down. But I think we not only have to talk about risk mitigation, but how do we use this tech for actual good? That's part of why I created the LGBTQ VR museum. It's why I'm creating a project next year which looks at using immersive technology to measurably reduce prejudice in users using compassion cultivation training principles established by Stanford University. I don't think there's as much talk about how we can use this for actual good rather than just mitigating the harm, which I think are both really important.
Okay. Next, Stuart.
I think from my perspective, I think that's a really important point, because the barrier to entry for all this tech, this is what we're seeing. I mean, having worked with the gaming industry a lot, we're seeing a seismic shift of this stuff becoming more widely available. So when we talk about Unreal Engine, there's already something called metahumans, where you can spin up a humanoid character using face tracking or rudimentary motion cap, stuff that can be done on an iPhone. And you can generate an avatar or a character in 35 minutes, right? So that's really interesting on one hand, but again quite worrying when you've got something that's led by creators and we need to enforce some controls. This comes with an announcement with Tim Sweeney this week, who said that the metaverse does need to be led by creators, not corporates, and that makes sense, right? You can't have, when you work with big corporates, they're very protected of our IP. We're not ever going to mix Xbox and PlayStation or Apple and Samsung. It just doesn't work. So we need to create these open environments where the creators are king, essentially. And Tim Sweeney was saying, even this week, that he's investing hundreds of millions, and if not billions, into not only the Lego platform that they're investing in for kids, but they're also going to tear down and flip, Fortnite inside out, right? So that's where we saw all of these people converging, mostly, teenage boys, which my kids included, during lockdown, going on there watching Travis Scott concerts, going on there watching Tenet, an early movie preview, sitting there not playing games, just as a social space. Okay, so that's how that platform is evolving. So that's the roadmap for Fortnite. Over the next 2 to 3 years, he's just going to turn it inside out, but use the power of Unreal 5, so you can have these photo-real experiences, and you can co-create in those environments. But this is where we need to start worrying about what's the balance between the realism of these experiences and how easy it is, and the barrier to entry to generate these experiences, versus what's right for us and the ethics.
Is that with so Diva has an element of influence and marketing in the kind of games landscape. So do you tread that line quite carefully, because a big part of what you're doing is about engagement and peer engagement and recognition of self in marketing versus the top-down approach.
Absolutely. I mean, the gaming marketplace, having worked in marketing for 20 plus years, I say there's only 3 groups of people who are as crazy as gamers, and those are cat people and chocolate people. So if you've got a cat, eat chocolate and play games, then you're screwed, basically. But the audience is, you basically have to adhere to what the audience wants. And what we're finding is a broad demographic of different genres. There's people who like shooters, people like casual, and everybody has to be spoken to differently, and we have to behave slightly differently. It's quite nice being involved in that industry, though, because we are at that edge of co-creation. So we will sometimes get independent publishers come to us and say, we don't know what this game's called. Sometimes we don't know what this game feels like. We don't know what it sounds like. And increasingly, as the industry grows and becomes more and more popular, they're leaning on people like us and independent creators to input into the creative realms. It's like you could become a scriptwriter for the narrative journey of those people, or you can become a character designer who can design one specific character. You become a game mechanic designer who can just design how someone moves their arms, for instance. So I think those are all really interesting places, and the business, as it continues to grow, there's going to be no shortage of creative skills that are required within the business. So, yeah, it's an interesting, exciting time, but it does come with its issues, and where you tread is you have to tread quite finely, because you can find yourself embroiled in an internet shitstorm sometimes if you say or do the wrong thing, because they're all crazy.
So, festival people, I should imagine. So co-creation, I would imagine, comes quite naturally to you within a festival environment or within Shangri-La, because effectively you're creating an environment for everybody to generate. So how do you take that sense of co-creation within a festival environment into the kind of technology realm that you're working with Lost Horizon? Does it make you approach technology in a different way, or approach making the VR space in a different way?
I guess we've always built immersive spaces. We don't just put on a stage and have a few stalls around it. It's like we want people to really feel like they're somewhere else. That's kind of how Shangri-La's developed over the years. So when the pandemic hit and there were no festivals, in a month we managed to build this ridiculous virtual space. But we needed to use the same skills that we have in the field, and it was as much work actually as it was just not physically. It was a lot of sitting down, staying up, drinking coffee. But so I think because it is a collaboration with Shangri-La, there's a vision that I carry and hold through it all, but it's all the layers on top with all the different people, that whether it's musicians or artists or VJs or performance. There's an end goal, but it's the more inputs we get from different sectors and different types of people, the better the show's going to be. And so when we were producing Lost Horizon Festival, we just had no idea. We'd never used VR before, really. We invited everybody that we've ever worked with to come and get involved in this crazy thing that we're trying out. So we worked with multiple musicians and DJs, but 200 visual artists, video makers, and performers that were kind of as avatars in the space. And that's what made it so interesting, and I think how people could relate to it, because whether they'd been to Shangri-La or not, that feeling of being in a festival environment and with a shared experience, particularly at that time when those experiences weren't available to anyone, it was really exciting. I think people were really respectful to each other, because it was almost like we're breaking the rules, fuck COVID, we're here, we're partying, we're doing it. And I think you need so many skills in order to create a space that feels safe and feels, like you want to be felt, like you want to feel in the real world. Yeah. Like we do at festivals, we have to consider, and our venue as well, we have to consider people's safety as a priority. But there's that other side to it, with the avatar thing, I'm really want to talk about this for a lot. It's problematic in so many ways, but the way that people present themselves in a festival environment or at a gig is like an extended version of themselves. So I sort of see avatars as being that, and they should be really playful, but it should be, we should just, I don't know, just
there's a whole legal side attached to this as well. We had a publisher say, we've got these characters, but we really want him to behave like Alan Partridge. So again, we went back to, I tell you, it's a slightly odd comedy game. But we had this, again, we used this bit of software called FaceFlow, which I don't know if you've used, but it basically analyses machine learning. So you just feed it, we just fed it videos of Alan Partridge. And it's scary, actually, how accurate his response and how he responds, and you can just, make him behave, and even down to slight facial gestures. But then, where does that stop? It's like, if you're going to put yourself into those environments and you're in an open source environment, are you at risk of having, your facial gestures stolen, for instance? In that case, it's slightly odd, isn't it?
Yeah, I think maybe moving away from having human avatars is that's what I'd like to do. Something that's way more creative, that people can have more agency over and design themselves, that, maybe moves with arms and legs and heads, but is something else entirely, to kind of take all of that bullshit out of it.
Well, that's what you're seeing in the kids' environments, aren't you? They're completely disconnected. So certainly in things like Roblox and Minecraft, it's deliberately pared back, so it's lo-fi, almost to sort of 8-pixel level. Yeah. To enhance that sense of safety. So it's definitely a strange one, especially when you're being asked to look at Alan Partridge videos for 9 hours a day.
VR chat is one of my favourite, just to touch on avatars quickly, VR chat is one of my favourite examples, because a lot of people in VR chat, which is built using Unity, is a lot of people have full body tracking, including myself. So you can sit with your legs crossed like this and gesticulate, and you can see that the person across from you is sitting down with their legs crossed. And the sense of immersion is completely amazing. So during the pandemic, I actually did ballroom dancing lessons with partners in VR chat, because there was no way to do that physically. But there's enough people with full body tracking that you could dance with someone. And obviously you don't have the feedback of being able to rest on them, but you can pretend and walk around and learn the footwork. And it was incredibly effective and very, very surreal when you take off the headset and realize there's no one else there. You're in your house, the sun's gone down, it's completely dark, you look insane, but we live in the future and I can do that. It was very, very cool. At the same time, so I can have a humanoid avatar or an animal avatar where I can control all the limbs, I can have facial expressions, I can even have eye tracking, depending on the headset. But I can also present as a stick of butter, which is my favorite avatar. And the reason I love that is people treat me differently, because it's not only meaningless to ask what gender is a stick of butter, you sound ridiculous for asking. So no one asks. Yeah. And I just don't speak with my voice, I use my full body tracking and I use pencils, I draw in 3D. I go up to someone and I draw a portrait of them and they realize what I'm doing and they start drawing a portrait of me, my stick of butter, very easy to draw because it's a rectangle. And we have this connection where I'm not able to have that in real life unless I guess I wear a mascot suit or something, because people will assume my gender when they look at me. They will interpret certain things about me and treat me a certain way based on my skin color, based on my age, based on my represented gender or the way I express my gender. And that's not necessarily the case in certain spaces. So I have a real passion for the freedom to use avatars. My favorite avatar in VR chat is a ray marching shader, which basically means this incredible, people keep calling it the God particle. It's this rainbow blob, and it's just amazing. Like, I wish I could just present as a rainbow blob in real life. Honestly.
All right, so I thought with ballroom dancing you'd moved us away from dystopia. And then, so I want to move us back to R&D a little bit. So we've been talking a lot about these new technologies which we've found uses for becoming a piece of butter or becoming Alan Partridge's avatar creator. In the generation of that technology, to go back to one of my first points, how much of this is innovating into the dark? How much of this is innovating into a hopeful client-based revenue-generating future? And how much is actually I can see something moving? And I'm thinking about condensed reality in particular here, or the thing that you were doing before that. You know, how much of this was kind of like, I think I can make the technology do this, and then once I've done it, I'll find out if there's a market, versus I've got a client who wants Alan Partridge.
Yeah, I think it's the way we're talking about this, or sometimes the way it's tempting to talk about the metaverse is it's some like thing that's way off in the future. And you look at Meta's vision video, it's unhelpful. It's 10 years down the line. This is what we think is going to happen. No one really knows. One thing we do know is that these environments, these 3D environments, are incredibly compelling. People spend enormous amounts of time in them. And I think I always try to look at it that the good that these 3D environments are doing. And I think a really some telling stats is Roblox, a popular 3D game. I think it's 250 million active daily users now, maybe active monthly users. It's an incredibly popular game, and the average user spends 2.8 hours a day inside the game, which a lot of people scoff at when they hear. They go, 2.8 hours a day inside a game. And yet, if I were to take their phone and have a look at their app history, which I'm sure some of you do from time to time and think, really? I spend 6 hours a day on my phone? And the experience that you're getting whilst accessing the internet is scrolling through feeds, algorithmically driven feeds, which are presenting you with information to try and keep you addicted. Whereas inside a 3D world, like you say, you're being social, you're interacting with people. You can view content in a way that people outside of the gaming space or outside of the metaverse space, they haven't yet experienced. And so they're perhaps viewing some of this with a bit of trepidation. But actually the platforms, while in the pandemic, while some people were doom scrolling through Twitter, the young were being social, being creative, enjoying themselves inside 3D spaces. And so I think the demand is, of course you have to innovate into spaces where you don't know how it's going to play out. But one thing we can say for sure is that the young are spending more time than ever inside 3D game worlds. It's a platform which that kind of content is something that just works with them. And if we don't create culturally significant content for them to consume, then they will continue to consume whatever's there. And so I think actually for creatives and for performers, it's their duty to get the content to the young, because they're that's who we need to be accessing. And
so Nick, can I turn the question around again? So did you see that there's a market opportunity coming? People are going to spend a lot of time in virtual worlds, younger rather than older. There needs to be 3D assets for them to engage in. Therefore, I will create R&D, which enables others to generate 3D assets. Was there a logic in the business logic?
That was exactly the thinking. I'm a gamer myself, and when I spend time inside 3D worlds, if I speak to other gamers, they can immediately understand the connection that you get with other people inside a 3D world. But if you speak to people who haven't spent time in there, they perhaps don't get it. VR and AR, these are just tools for viewing 3D worlds. And we sometimes view them as completely separate things, but they are just another tool to give people access to 3D worlds. These worlds are very compelling, and we saw a dearth of content. We thought there's not enough stuff going on inside these spaces. How can we get more stuff in? We can't possibly create all the content ourselves, so let's try and build the tools which help other people create content so that we can fill these worlds with all the culture that we appreciated when we grew up on TV or theatre or however you consume your content.
Stuart, can I ask a similar question to you? Because when we were talking before, the shape of the business has changed considerably, as in some ways you've added more services due to client demand.
Yeah.
So you're moving with you're innovating in order to address an identified gap.
Absolutely. I think, I'm relatively new to Diva, but when Diva started, it was a traditional marketing agency that was just producing banner ads and posters and point of sale and things like that. But increasingly, as game engines have become more prevalent within the production of games, and then they've been opened, so they're open APIs that anyone can start to play with. We've got publishers and people coming to us, especially indies and people who are, developing games out of their bedrooms, going, "We've got this game, but can you basically create a trailer for us?" And it's like, "Well, have you got any footage from the game?" No, they just hand the game over. So we then have to go in and use the game as a world, as a real world stage and an environment to set light, and sometimes, through creative process, we make it look slightly better than the final game. Have to put a few more lights in and smooth things out a bit more. But that's amazing as an experience, because what that's enabling us to do is build a full service studio around people, and what I'd like to do within the next couple of years is certainly do something like a game jam where we can put all of these requisite skills together, because you start to collect these people. There's people who can write narrative, you've got people who can model, you've got people who can do particle systems, you can do all these sorts of things. And so you've got 90% of a game. And so we've been approached this year by studios to create what's called a vertical slice, which within the industry means a playable level. And there's such a huge amount of money within the industry now, like the gaming industry alone in the UK is worth £7.5 billion. We just recently hosted a gaming expo in London called WASD, and in half of that expo was what's called a games marketplace, where you've got all sorts of people from Bloomberg, JP Morgan, all of these banks, like even film, like the BFI, commissioning games. So essentially now it's you don't have to make a full game. You don't have to spend years and years within your bedroom producing something. You can produce a vertical slice. You can gather a crack team of people, you and your friends, or all of my studio, to go, right, who can do this bit, and go some way to create just one level or an experience, and then goes for investment, which is, I think, again, we're moving into that realm of where we were with film and content production, and where you've got things like Netflix, that's kind of leveled the playing field, because they're commissioning outside of your conventional, big Hollywood, AAA titles. It's now like there's demographics for lots of different types of games, and there's sort of crazy things. My kids will sit there and play a duck simulator, or a deer simulator, or a goat simulator, and then my friend, who has a very stressful job, goes home and he sits on a plane. He's got a long-haul flight simulator. And I'm just like, what? Why? Why on earth? And then there's people who twitch that. So not only why on earth would you sit on a plane for 6 hours, why would you then watch someone do that? It's just like, but there are people out there, and there's all these sort of, to that point, it's what makes people tick, and it's how people unwind and their niche and whatever makes them relax. And so literally, we're getting to that point now where it's not like in gaming, you used to have that stigma attached to it, right? You used to go, oh, it's just for kids, it's just for these people. When you say to someone, what music do you like? You don't say, do you listen to music? You don't say, do you watch films? And I think we're at that sort of precipice now. We're about to jump to the point where you just go, well, what games do you play? Not, are you a gamer? Because I think everybody, to some level, will play games or is already playing games.
So, Maddie, I want to come to you on that. Okay. I'm sorry, we keep going dystopian. The whole idea of getting on a long-haul flight and not getting off somewhere else is just insane. How does that fit? So, you've spent a lot of time working around interactive documentary. Mm-hmm. Does this feel like it's the logical progression, or does this feel like an entirely different space, and actually content production, which comes from that film or TV tradition, will change again to be something different?
Yeah, because in a way, it's interesting, because in a way, a lot of what we've been talking about are social forms of immersive content, gaming, VR chat, all those kind of social VR worlds. And I hear everything you're saying, and they are absolutely just taking off in a kind of exponential way. But I guess, yes, indeed, the kind of immersive and interactive documentary forms I've been thinking about are often much more akin to TV and film. A piece that you invite people along to and that they may experience one at a time. And in some ways are more challenging. So I think it's interesting that we need to also be careful we're not carried away with the buzz around some of these social forms, which is very real, but forget that there are more challenges, audience challenges. I mean, we, in a project called Virtual Realities, a research project that I worked on with Key Cater and Danny Stanton Fraser a couple of years ago, we did some research in Bristol. We took non-fiction VR to 14 households in Bristol, 35 people, and we gave them a program of non-fiction, an Oculus Go, and asked them to try out these pieces of work across 8 weeks. It was super, super interesting. They loved VR. They were really enthusiastic, and they really got how the spatial environment of VR might offer you a different way of accessing knowledge about the real world. All that was great, and their insights were really interesting. But most of those households, after a couple of weeks, and I would emphasize they weren't gamers, they weren't early adopters of VR, most of those households, after a couple of weeks, put the technology aside. The headset was gathering dust on the shelf. And it was super, super interesting when we talked to them at the end about their experiences. And as I say, there was lots of positive they had to say, but they compared VR to TV, most of them, and they felt that VR didn't deliver the really important social stuff that TV delivers. You watch a program alongside your partner, you talk about it, it's a way to introduce topics to your kids, etc., etc. And they were uncomfortable about that, uncomfortable about being ensconced in a headset and being apart from the house and the social aspect of the house. So again, what we learned from that was, was how social, technology doesn't drive the future. It's human need and desire of technology that drives things forward, So, we learned that, and we learned about social VR. But interestingly, some of those people who'd never encountered social VR also invented it in our conversation. They said things like, well, I'd like to do it if I could do it with my wife. Or they'd say, it would be great if you could get together with friends there in the virtual space. So they actually sat there and kind of invented social VR. But I guess what to me that says is we have to keep in touch with that audience understanding and keep that as part of our thinking as we go, preferably in development processes, not after them, ideally that's an iterative dialogue with your audience or a kind of co-creation, as you were talking about in the gaming space.
I think it speaks to the danger of trying to change people's habits as well. It's like, often when we're talking about our technology, people say, I've heard of 3D TV, and that failed. And we say, well, actually, there is audiences here already, and we're trying to bring the content to the places in which they already spend their time, rather than, like you say, trying to get somebody to change years of habits of working in one way to say, now you're going to wear a VR headset every single evening, that's a really difficult thing. They revert back. Maybe if you did it for 3 months and insisted, maybe you could form a habit. But I think the interesting thing about game worlds and about 3D worlds is that these habits have been formed in the pandemic. Because, it was going that way anyway, but the pandemic certainly strengthened it, which is why the game industry is doing so well at the moment. One other thing I just wanted to say is that I think the term gaming is a real interesting one, because we've been talking about using game engines in order to power completely different experiences. And I think there's not really a word for this sort of like media convergence that we're seeing, where we're actually seeing music, theatre, performance, all of these different things converging into game engines. And like gaming's almost a separate piece to that, although it's in the same thing. And you're seeing this with Fortnite, with Roblox, that they're actually saying we're not games companies. We are places where games can be held, which I think is a very interesting concept.
It's interesting. So the use cases outlive or change, and the language doesn't change. The semantics are the same. It's like digital media or whatever. All of these things, these words that still lie around. Kay, I just want to come to you on the point about bringing the audience with you. So you're now creating, Twitch links out of Lost Horizon, or you're now creating digital twins of Lost Horizon. How are you bringing the audience with you now that they don't? So previously they couldn't come there. Now they can come there, but how do you kind of engage them in this idea that, actually there's a digital element over here to your social world?
We're just about to start that, because we're still prototyping the digital twins and testing things out. We've got a lot to do. We've had a bit of funding to support that, but we definitely need more to take it somewhere else. But everyone that comes to the venue, I guess they see that there's some digital screens in there, and we will be having headsets available for people to just come and try out. I guess the audience side of it, they're open to everything. They're excited about what this space could be. We have had hologram performances already in the venue, which have been brilliant. But yeah, the next step is and all the artists, they're really excited about it. The fact that their performances can be seen by anyone, anywhere, that is kind of really why we're doing it, to try and support the music industry. And we're just about to start, so we want everyone to come and test this stuff out with us. I think it needs to start from the venue itself. Obviously, there will be people remote, but and it has to be quite a carefully sort of measured thing, because all of the things that we've just all been talking about, it's a delicate subject, and we want people to feel really safe there as they do in real life. So I think, I don't know if that really answers your question, but
it does.
Just
it's
I think
complex,
a little
right?
bit at a time. It is really complex, and I think, but the barrier, the real point that the heart behind it all is making this tech accessible to people. Because even when we began Lost Horizon, we didn't even have the cash to buy a headset to even see our own work in. It was kind of it's still expensive. We're in St Jude's, near St Paul's in Easton. We want people to come to the space and try this stuff and use this stuff, because it's not accessible enough for us. So having a space that people can come to, like a community centre, where you can engage in this stuff, I think is where we need to start, really slowly and with our community, and gauge their opinion before we take it out to the world.
Yeah. Thank you. So we're nearly out of time. We've got a room full of people who are about to write a funding bid about some kind of innovation. So can you think of one innovation which either you want somebody out here to develop, or you want to develop personally, which will move the business forward, which will create a step change for you as a business?
I can go on this one.
Yeah, good. Everybody else looks like scared.
I'm relatively new to Diva, so I've worked in varying scales of businesses, and certainly large production agencies, independent agencies, large advertising agencies. And the one thing that I've found, and again, the model was slightly broken when, well, not broken, it was just not what I was used to at Diva, but I think we get so caught up around the deliverable, like what we're getting to, what is the thing, that we forget about the journey, okay? And for an example, in Diva, we were structured around deliverables. So there's someone here doing posters, there's someone here doing banners, someone doing Unity Engine, and there's someone here doing motion videos and social videos. No one wants to be the banner guy, right? So what you want to do is you want to tear down those silos. So if you're ever working in a team, it's making sure that your team is multifaceted enough and multi-skilled enough that you can move across. And fundamentally, that helps with the well-being of your team. Because people don't get burnt out, okay? They don't feel like they've got nowhere to go. Their career is just going down into developing display banners that no one looks at, clicks at, or... Top facts, you're more likely to die in an air accident than you are to click on a banner. Anyway, that's a different thing, right? So the idea is just so don't come to Diva to do banners, that's fine. But the idea is just to make sure that your team is fluid enough. It's like, don't structure, go, right, you are the guy that is doing this. Make sure that if you're working in a team bigger than yourself, make sure that there's enough facets to those people and you give them the opportunity to move sideways into different skills. And that's not technology, that's just team hacking, essentially. Yeah. It's giving them the opportunity to move into different areas of interest or try new things that they've never thought they'd trying before, right? And often you'll find that hidden gem, right? You'll go, you were that guy, how have you done this? Or they stand up in front of a client and just blow them away. And that's really rewarding as someone who's trying to run that business, to see people flourish, and you'll get to the goal so much quicker. Yeah. So by sort of making that journey lovely, you'll get to the destination.
So we've got workflow and culture and skills development in there. Antonia.
So I touched on this a bit earlier, that there are these conversations about how to prevent harm in virtual worlds or when we're developing emerging technology, but there's not as many conversations about how to actively do good with it and how to solve real problems. And what I'd personally like to see is more people from backgrounds that are underrepresented in technology, people who are female, people who are queer, people who are black, Asian, or from ethnic minorities, or indigenous, or people of color, people of different ages, people from different educational backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, geographical areas. There's so many aspects to diversity, and there's so many people who are underrepresented in the tech sector. So the people who are overrepresented, there's a lot of cultural similarity and access to tools, and so a lot of problems that are being solved that speak to those people. But people who are underrepresented, there's not as much access to those technologies, there's not as much awareness around which technologies are available on the cutting edge, because the people just aren't in the rooms with those tech. Yeah. And therefore the problems that could be solved just aren't being brought up. So I'd love to see people who are underrepresented in tech speaking about and looking at problems that they've faced, issues that they personally want solved. That's why I built the museum for myself. There's no dedicated LGBT museum in the UK at all, so I decided I'd build it out virtual reality. And I would say if you're not in a marginalised group, that's completely fine. You can consult with and work very closely with people in those communities. I think that's super important. So if you're able to do that, it means you're able to address real problems. I've got a real passion about starting with why. Don't start with what you want to build and then shoehorn it into a problem or try and find a problem to solve, because when you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and you might misidentify something as a problem, or you might step in a place where you're not necessarily helping. You might actually be causing harm. So I would say start with why, find your problem, speak to people, introduce the technology into new places, as you were saying, make sure people have access, consult with those communities, and then you'll see some amazing things coming out.
I would say that's a very kind of clear ambition of MyWorld, which hopefully we will see more visibility of as we come through. That if we're a communications industry, we have to be allowing all people to communicate to all people. So it's Mandy, Kay, Nick, anything?
I think something that I'm particularly interested in is combining people's creativity, people who are outside of the technology sector at the moment, that are maybe even fearful of it, combining that with this incredible technology that we're building. I loved what Kay said earlier about building the environment inside a digital space was as hard as building it inside the real world. And that there are so many little problems which exist when you try to move content into digital spaces. And we're looking at live streaming of these live events, so actually delivering the performance. But all of the other problems, like I was tempted to ask you, do you have digital bouncers? And how do you deal with people kicking off inside a club? Like, do you have
need
to?
them. You have to have them.
Yeah, exactly. And so all of these little things that it's like, there's so many things that people don't really think about inside. They just come naturally inside running a club in the real world. If you try to set up these spaces where people can experience these things inside the digital world, there's tons of problems that need solving. And so we're just at the and the other thing I'd say is literally the very first step into the metaverse. We've taken step number 1 out of about 1 million. And so if you want to get into this space, there's always going to be stuff for you to build, and there's always tons of problems to solve. So I think bringing more people from outside the industry in is a good thing.
Andy?
So yeah, first I'll do a plug which just responds to what you just said, which is please all take a look at the report that came out last week, produced by 2 Bristolians, Catherine Allen and Verity McIntosh, who I think is here, called Safeguarding the Metaverse, which reflects some of the those issues you're just talking about there. Really important piece of work. So for myself, because you've talked about the social aspects really well, I think something that I'm preoccupied with and that we're preoccupied with in the experimental productions work package in MyWorld is the business of how you facilitate kind of agile, quick, prototyping may not be quite the right word, but in development processes. So, for example, we've been thinking a lot about devising processes in theatre and how you can bring creative media technology into those processes. So what would a toolkit look like for a digital dramaturge in theatre that could help them sort of, knock up very quick little kind of sketches for how creative media might support a particular theatre production? So, yeah, I guess I just think there's a lot of challenges for producers in terms of shaping up their projects, understanding things like point of view in a 3D environment. So tools that can allow you to sketch those things out and show them to collaborators and show them to your potential audience, I think would be really, really valuable.
Yeah. We actually had a bit of Innovate money to do just that. That was the vision. It wasn't really enough money or time to develop that, but that is definitely what we really want to push through as well, is creating toolkits for people, creatives, so that they can work anywhere with anyone, collaborate in any part of the world. That is definitely something that needs more investment into and time.
Great, thank you. So there's some things there. There's about tools which allow you to collaborate multiple different assets in multiple different platforms. We've got some very interesting kind of bringing other people to it, and some really strong social research questions. So hopefully that's kind of food for things that could go into the call. We've just about finished time, so I'd really like to thank the panel. If everybody could give them a little...
So, first I just want to thank everyone who just contributed this afternoon. I hope you all found it as absolutely as inspiring as I did. I think, actually, there were so many things covered. We've got the tech side, the experience side, the ethics, the legal, and actually all of those aspects, I think, with the different opportunities that we're presenting with MyWorld, the different calls, the ones that Faraha covered, and the CR&D call, hopefully we can address all those different aspects. And I think things like the fellowships can look at the ethics, hopefully alongside maybe one of the CR&D calls. So we're really interested not just in the individual calls, but actually in the interrelation between all of those different open funding opportunities and how they can work together. And also alongside the experimental productions that Mandy mentioned as well. So I think that interrelation across the whole programme is a really important aspect to touch on as well. So I'm just going to round up with a quick recap of the things we covered this morning. So the MyWorld website obviously is up there, but look at that for details of all the open funding opportunities, for the facilities we're providing, all the skills, kits and knowledge that's available to you. There's a lot of blogs on there that go into more detail about things like the creative continuum that Dave talked about earlier. And you can sign up for the newsletter, so when all of these other calls open, you can find out about them and also any of the other information we're sharing. Watersheds calls, Details of Watershed's calls are on their website, again, which is there, and Vanessa, who's down the front here, with Danielle, can answer any questions about those. And the Digital Catapult calls on the MyWorld website, but specifically for the CR&D call, you need to go to Innovate's Innovation Funding Service platform. There's the webinar next week, which will go into the CR&D call in more detail and the application process and allow you to ask questions about that process too. And then finally, of course, there's the social links there. So follow us on Twitter, join us on LinkedIn, and yeah, tell us what you're doing. You know, come and talk to us, get in touch. And I think probably that's me. I'm going to hand back to Oscar just to close today.
I'll keep it super brief. Thank you all so much for coming. It's so lovely after 12 months of trying to get this whole thing going to get people in a room talking to each other. It's been really great to feel the energy and the excitement. I hope you feel inspired. You've got the information that you need to start thinking about projects. And one other thing I've learned is not to stand in the way of people and their drink. There's drinks and nibbles at the back. Please circulate, go and chill out and talk to each other. Thank you very much, everyone.